in our wisdom is there. But empathy is more than karuna. Empathy is that ability to put yourself emotionally in the place of another. Sympathy is more superficial. You genuinely feel sorry. Your emotions are engaged. But empathy is you put yourself in the shoes of somebody else. You transform yourself and then you see it from that side. And today, that is considered extremely important in every profession. Because earlier, you dealt with IQ, the intelligence quotient, and there are measurements, how to measure your IQ. But today, IQ is not enough. I'm talking about the world that you are entering. This is not an option for you to forget about. In addition to IQ, there is today EQ, intelligence quotient, emotional quotient. Are you mature emotionally? Your intellect may be sharp, but can you get on with people? Does politeness and courtesy and helpfulness come to you naturally? Can you judge a difficult question from the other person's point of view? That is EQ. And before I go, in case some of you may not know, there are some excellent books, and this is something that you must read on, because this can make a big difference in anybody's profession, certainly a profession of a doctor. There's an author well regarded in the world called Daniel Goleman. If necessary, I will give the reference. And he has written, his first classic book was called just Emotional Intelligence. It's based on science, neuroscience. I think not only every professional, every undergraduate should read that, but every husband and wife should read that, about their interpersonal relations and how you can deal with children. Emotional intelligence. So these are some of the significances that I want to highlight to all of you. And these significances would be there only if you cultivate awareness, concentration. Otherwise you shut your mind is not active, you just go through life. Take today. Today we came in a procession. Your Vice Chancellor, your senior dons were dressed in formal academic attire. I have come formally dressed in a lounge suit. Normally I wear shirt and tie to most places. Now why have we done this? Please understand, this entails a certain degree of discomfort. To all of academics are worse because they are in suit or sari and they are in cloak. They tried to offer me a cloak, I dodged it. No, you must then, I'm talking about significance. Why? Why? Because this is a formal occasion. it is also an act of respect to your parents and to you. Not that they want to parade in colorful clothes. There is deep meaning to this. And because this, I was told, is the inaugural lecture of your medical course. And it's a heartfelt welcome to you. You can see with what honor your professors, the Vice Chancellor and others have treated you. Please don't forget that. These are not done lightly. Again, let me make the last point on this issue of significance. I told you, you have to be active mentally. Don't shut your mind and just do just a few things and carry on. Just be awareness. I would like to wish you all good luck in your undergraduate academic career. That is normally done. It is not done really because it is conventional, because speakers really wish you to do well. It comes from our heart. But let's examine what this good luck is. Now you have to examine everything. You are now in a university. You have different forms of luck. Luck is not one thing. I'll give you some examples because you have to think. There is gambler's luck. That is blind chance. You buy a sweep ticket, you get the first prize. That is blind chance or luck. But professional chance and professional luck are totally different. You would have heard of the saying or phrase, people make their own luck. People make their own luck. What do you mean? It seems to be a contradiction, isn't it? Luck is something we think is something that must come from the sky. How can you make it? That, I said, is only one aspect of luck, the gambler's luck. In professional luck, you have to make your own luck. We talk about instincts. What are instincts ultimately? Instincts are really educated experience. What you call instinct, you just don't get instincts. An instinct is an educated experience, not just an experience, educated experience. What is educated experience? Where you have reflected, you have acted, you have amended, you have rejected, you have admitted, and you are refined. And when you go on doing that, suddenly when you see something, you know the answer. That is not luck. That is why one of the famous Nobel Prize winning scientists, Louis Pasteur, France. That's why you get this term pasteurization of milk and so on, antibacterial. Louis Pasteur said, mind you, Nobel Prize winner, he said chance favors the prepared mind. Chance favors the prepared mind. Now the classic example of that is discovery of penicillin. Alexander Fleming. You could say the discovery of penicillin was a chance or accident. What was it? Why? What happened? Alexander Fleming was conducting various experiments. He kept part of the experiments in some petri dishes overnight, and when he came next morning, he found something totally unexpected. These petri dishes are full of fungus. First, he was very upset because this was ruining his experiment. Then he began, now this is chance. Accident or nature? Chance. But then, because he was a top-rate scientist, because he was trained to think in a different way, maybe his instincts, educated instincts told him something. He went into why. Instead of cursing the loss of time on his own experiment and wiping it off, he went into why and how this mold of fungus appeared in the petri dishes. And that was the finally, when he got to the bottom of it, was the discovery of penicillin. And all the other antibacterial drugs in that range, which came from that accident in the laboratory. But if that accident was not recognized, I don't know how long we would have taken to discover a drug like that, a miracle drug. That is why I talk about significances, that you have to be active. You have to always question why, how. It is just not book learning, just not memorization. You did a bit of that in school, not in a university. University has to open out your minds to question everything critically. Right. Let me then come to my second theme. You all are very young people. You have a whole life ahead of you. Have you thought about your values? What is your value system? In Sinhala, we talk about the Hara Paddhati. We talk about Vatinaka. We talk about Sara Dharma. All there in our ancient learning, all there. Because if you don't have a foundation, a base of values, what you build, however clever you are, your building that you construct will be shaky. It's not on solid foundations. Now see what happened in Karandeni. Look at the values. Just a fight over some petty laboratory. I don't have to tell you, you know. See all the newspapers. Why? No values. Just greed. I am only telling you to address it. I can't tell you what your values should be. I am not going to tell you that. That's for you to decide. But I want to give you one example of a dilemma I faced and the road I took. I am not even telling that road is right. That's not for me to. All I can say is I was comfortable. Now let me tell you very briefly. Some years after I retired from the public service, but I was still working elsewhere, one day the chairman of the Ceylon Tobacco Corporation rang me, there's a vacancy on our board of directors, would you please be so good as to become a director of our company? Now, Ceylon Tobacco is perhaps the richest company in Sri Lanka, maybe John Keels and Tobacco. At that time, I think it was the richest company. And a board position, even a board position would have given me a lot of money. They bring you on boards for your experience and your judgment and your analytical skills, not to sit down and do 8 hours of work. So you don't have very much time taken off you. The board papers will be sent home, you look at them and go for the board meeting. Board meeting might take 2 to 3 hours, maybe once a month or so. And then you might get landed on one of the board committees. There are always committees or subcommittees of the board. Now I was quite taken aback because I never expected this kind of offer. Now I was very instantly, my mind and my whole being said, no, I can't take it. But I'll tell you why. Oh, I might as well tell you why now. Because with my knowledge, the knowledge that I have, tobacco is harmful to people. Smoking is harmful. That is why on the packets of cigarettes, earlier you had to say smoking could be harmful to your health. But now I think we have to say smoking is harmful. Can cause cancer, heart trouble, all kinds of things. That was one problem. Other problem was, as Professor Mohan De Silva in his introduction said, I have been secretary to the Ministry of Education and Higher Education. And in that position, we were responsible for 4.3 million children. 4.3 million children then in the general education system. That is without the 12 or 13 universities at that time and the 28 technical colleges. But in the general education system, 4.3 million children, almost 1/4 of your population, went to school. And we had a committee in the Ministry of Education about how to handle the issue of alcohol, tobacco and drugs, where various organizations and people, individuals, were trying to get the school children into these habits. But don't forget, once you get into a habit, it's extremely difficult to break it. That's why you must never get into bad habits. Extremely difficult. There are withdrawal symptoms. People suffer, they vomit, they go mad. Even nicotine has withdrawal symptoms. We had an advisory committee consisting of various people, some deputy directors from the health ministry, doctors, 1 or 2 doctors from the Maharagama Cancer Institute, chairperson of ADIC, that is Mrs. Amarasuriya, the wife of the chairman of the commercial bank, who was in a non-governmental organization called ADIC, which tries to prevent this addiction. And like that, we had a whole advisory committee. Now this advisory committee need not have been chaired by the secretary himself. It could have easily been chaired by an additional secretary. But I took this issue because, you see, 4.3 million children, you are responsible. That's not a light matter. It's not like sitting in a chair and doing your files and going home. So I decided this was so important that I was going to chair this myself personally, although I was desperately short of time. Many a day I used to start lunch at 4 o'clock. Some days there is no time for lunch because of the eternal meetings from Parliament to you name it. It's a huge ministry. But I thought this one I will chair. At that time there were all kinds of ploys. There was a suspicion that at big matches they were trying to lace soft drinks given to our school children with some drugs so they get hooked. So these were things that we couldn't lightly ignore if you are responsible. So now, having chaired that committee also, alcohol, tobacco and drugs, how am I to become a director of a company? However much the monetary gain, where the principal function of that company is to sell their cigarettes. Of course, it's legitimate, it is allowed. In fact, government gets a lot of tax out of the company. I'm not blaming the company. It's a legally valid company. They do a lot of good. They are giving employment to a lot of people. They are on to, as extension services, on to agriculture. They are helping farmers. I'm not condemning the company. But I had a problem. And the problem was that if I get on a board of directors, I had to then really conscientiously work for the benefit and welfare of that company. I had to put my heart into it, not only my mind. Now this I found I couldn't do. So I very politely, because I couldn't say no straight away because the chairman himself rang me, I said, why don't you give me some time, I'm desperately. Then he said, no, that's all right. You take even 2 weeks. Now, I was very disappointed with this. So now anyway, I got a 2 weeks reprieve. And then I forgot about it. 2 weeks later, I get another call. Have you thought about it? We all unanimously have decided that we want you on the board. This time, I said, I have thought about it carefully, but I have a mental block. So you must please forgive me. I didn't want to criticize them or anything. It's a valid enterprise. I said, what to do? I have a problem. I have a mental problem with this. Why? I said, because with my knowledge of things, tobacco is A, harmful, B, habit forming. They said, no. All these highly exaggerated. Wait. Please give us your address. We will send the research done by us. Now what do you do? Now you have to see, now again, emotional intelligence. What I told you earlier. When you are dealing with people in society, you must not say, nah, back, straight. There is a way of doing things. So this example gives you that also. I mean, these are important people. They are people who are providing employment. They are not doing anything criminal. It's allowed. Government gets tax out of the thing. So you have to be polite. Extremely important. You can't be rough. And they are people of some standing, if not great standing in society. So then I gave the address. Now what to do? They send me 2 boxes full of their research done in America and so on. Now I just flipped through because for me this was all not the point. I really had a mental block. And that mental block was what? Based on my values. So finally, having gone through this, and when they telephoned me another 10 days later to ask whether I had gone through, I said, look, yes, all right, I admit there are, something to be said on your side, but please understand me. You will agree that if one feels uncomfortable, however irrational that discomfort may be, I put it that way, however irrational that discomfort may be, if you are uncomfortable with something, it's better not do it. Now that is my problem. I'm sorry, maybe I had to go to a psychiatrist and get my head examined. Now, you don't hurt people. That is the idea. So they must not feel bad, because after all they are invited, something. And it's a big position to be on the board of directors of the leading company of Sri Lanka. And they don't have a huge board. So they reluctantly said, all right, anyway, thank you very much. So I thought I was off. 3 days later, at 8 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings at home, and one of my personal friends, heading an important firm of chartered accountants, rings me and says, by the way, has Ceylon Tobacco contacted you on this director's post? I said, yes, but I have a problem. Then before I could tell him anything at length, he told me, I want to also tell you something which they didn't want to tell you at that time, because it was still confidential, but I have their permission to tell you this now. And he said their intention is to have you on the board for about 1 year. The chairman is due to retire. And the intention is that after 1 year or 14 or 15 months, to make you chairman of Ceylon Tobacco.